Viewers, today we are here with the CEO of BVI Cable TV. Of course, we all know by now there was a video released that caused some major controversy. We are having that discussion today at 284 Media right after this commercial break.
What are you really running for, boss? You could have bust a hole in your head. But see you with the competition. Which means you're about to bust a hole in your pocket.
I could get my modem, please.
Anyhow, I got something huge to show you.
I gotta be sick in your head.
The whole on string bean, Tina kind of party. Check this. That's LTE1 for just about everyone. LTE2 for you and your boo. And hold on. Bam! Rate so low, you feel like you're free. That's LTE3 for you and the whole family.
Save even more on your internet with new pricing from CCT. Get LTE2 now for only $149. Get LTE3 for the new low price of $189. All packages are unlimited, so there's no overage charge. You don't have to run into Chaz for savings. Just stop by our store and sign up today. Come on over to CCT. Life Unlimited.
Mr. Penn, welcome to 284 Media.
Thank you. How you doing?
I am doing great. So essentially, we are here to discuss this video that was released yesterday. It was the day before yesterday regarding BVI Cable TV, essentially accusing BVI Electricity of unethical and unfair pricing practices. Before we get into the gist of things, just tell us what led to this reality.
Well, we didn't really want to accuse BVIEC of anything. This is something that's been going on for quite some time behind the scenes. We've been trying to negotiate an end to this dispute for probably a year and a half now. Unfortunately, we had to come out to the public and say something because an injunction was issued by the court, which stops us from being able to attach to poles and continue the building out of our network. We've worked really hard over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, to relaunch the BVI Cable TV product. Our team has worked tirelessly on it. We spent, as I said, millions of dollars, countless man hours, and the situation that it is right now, all of that work has been stopped. And we really don't know how long it'll be stopped for, because once something goes into the courts, it's really hard to say exactly how long it will take. So that had very specific economic and operational realities for us as a company, and that is what precipitated us going out to the public to make a public statement.
Okay, in the video you referenced the law regarding payment, and you said, or well, the law says, every public supplier and public utility must offer to provide access to facilities and utility installations on a non-discriminatory and equitable basis, including with respect to rates, locations, and other commercial matters. However, yesterday we saw a response from BVI Electricity, and they responded with, the statement prescribes rates and charges for electricity supply, not pole attachments, end of quote. What do you say to that?
I'm hesitant to say too much because, as I said, this matter is in court, and we've also referred the matter to the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission because we feel that's the body that really should be looking at this matter to try to get it resolved. When we made our statement, we were very careful not to call names. The only entity that we referred to was BVIEC because they had obviously taken us to court. They had applied for an injunction. They got an injunction. So it was very specific in terms of what they did that was causing us to have to stop moving forward. We didn't talk too much about the other providers. When they made a statement yesterday, their statement is very troubling to us. They've come up with some specifics, but not all. And so we don't want to talk too much about it. But the reality of the situation is this is a pretty basic question of fairness. Our contention is that all of the carriers should be charged the same amount. BVIEC very artfully said that we were offered the same rate as one of the providers, but did not say how much the other provider was getting. We don't think that BVIEC is appropriate for them to be choosing winners and losers within the telecommunications industry. And we think it's important that the government be impartial and fair and have an equitable rate between all the providers. And that's what the law says within the Regulatory Commission. Interestingly enough, the BVIEC essentially asserted that that didn't apply to them. So I think this is I like to say reasonable people can disagree. We feel very, very strongly that it's important that all the providers have the same rate, and that's our only concern. It's not, we have not said that we're not willing to pay. We're not saying that we're not able to pay. What we're saying is that in order for us to be competitive within the landscape in the BVI, we need to all get the same rate from the government.
On the line of payment, you outlined in your speech as well that another telecommunications company is paying a lot lower than what you were being asked to pay. Do you have any proof of that?
We do.
You do?
Yes, we do.
And I guess that will be presented in the court as
It's been presented in the court and obviously presented before the commission as well.
Why do you think that is so?
I would rather not try to say why that is so. I think it's fair just as a matter of morality and a matter of law. It's unfair. And BVIEC has taken a contrary position that they can charge different rates to different providers for the same exact thing. As I said, we think that's inappropriate for the government. Maybe reasonable minds may disagree, but it's something that we do feel very strongly about. We don't see any way that you can preserve fairness within the industry where the government could essentially decide winners and losers, as I say. You know, as someone who manages a company that's invested millions of dollars here within the BVI, I need certain assurances. My investor needs certain assurances going forward that we build a product that we won't be put out of business by the government or by a government entity that decides that, you know, we like this entity more than you, so we're going to charge you a different price for the same thing. We just think it's fundamentally unfair.
The Electricity Corporation also acknowledged in their statement that they would have reallocated some of the poles that belong to BVI Cable TV. They outlined 15 poles. Is that true?
Well, our accounting of the number of poles is different than theirs. But the more troubling thing about that statement was they said that they had commandeered poles, which I found to be a really interesting characterization. I remember that day very specifically when it happened. And we made no steps to oppose them taking the poles. Obviously, we were under the understanding that we would be able to use these poles as we would have used in the past. And obviously, getting power back up is critical for our industry as well. So we didn't want to stand in the way of, you know, the redevelopment really of the country. But I must say personally, I had a problem with their characterization of being they commandeered things in a country that's rebuilding. And we have sent several young people to jail in this community for looting after the storm. I think for the BVIEC to characterizing as commandeering our property is a troubling characterization. And I would extend them the professional courtesy and continue to refer to it as we provided them to them.
Do you think looting would be a better term?
I said we provided them to them. We provided those poles to BVIEC. We took no opposition to them taking the poles, so we provided them. That was something that was a voluntary act by us, and I think that's a much better characterization. I would encourage them to embrace that characterization because I think commandeer really opens up a hornet nest as to what really would have happened, and we don't want to accuse them of anything or in any way try to characterize them similar to people who were guilty of looting or stealing after the storm.
All right. What do you make of the BVI Electricity assumption that by way of layoffs, BVI Cable TV was out of business? I mean, they alluded to this as the reasoning behind them, reallocating the poles.
Well, we did have some temporary layoffs after the storm, as many businesses within the community did. Probably the only entity that probably didn't have some layoffs after the storm was probably the government. But that was just literally just us trying to realign our resources to position ourselves to rebuild. We brought those people back as soon as we could, as soon as we had equipment in and so on to move forward. And there was never a time when BVI Cable TV had no staff. There was never a time where we completely ceased operations. What we did cease is we ceased retail sales and services because we don't have a network up. But from the very time of the storm, from the very next day, we have been working on rebuilding this network.
What do you think this says about their business ethics?
I would prefer not to opine on that at this time.
Fair enough. Based on your statement as well, you've exhausted quite a number of avenues in an effort to resolve this issue. You reached out to the company themselves, TRC, the case then resorted to the courts. Even your efforts to reach out to the government proved futile. So,
Well, so far, I mean, we continue to do that. I'm a British Virgin Islander, and not only because I'm a British Virgin Islander, I am a business person here within this community, and I'm committed to this community. So we're not going to give up. We will continue to appeal to BVIEC management. We'll continue to appeal to the government. We've asked the Premier for an emergency meeting to discuss this matter because we think it's so critical, and we don't want, obviously, critical infrastructure that we have to be held up for months because of a court case, which is really a discussion about money.
right.
And, and us just saying that it's fundamentally fair that all operators pay the same amount. We think this is something where that we should be able to get it resolved relatively quickly. We have a meeting scheduled with the Premier for Monday. I'm hoping that meeting does come off. And I think if reasonable people sit down and analyze this is something that we should be able to solve. This is not as complicated as it's being made out to be.
All right. We've tried to make concrete the culture preserving opportunities for locally owned companies in the BVI, something solid. Nevertheless, many persons, ever since the video was released and BVIEC responded, have echoed that this seems to be yet another opportunity to essentially empower the outsiders at the expense of a locally owned brand. What do you say to that?
I would rather not go too far into that. I think this is one of those situations where obviously we are a company which is, primarily locally owned. We're a locally managed company. We're very proud of that. But I think would be the same regardless of what company it was. If this was a company from outside of the BVI that was coming to invest here within our community, they would want the same assurances that we are looking for to be able to protect their investment and have a fair competition against their competitors.
What is your ultimate outcome of this situation?
We hope to get it resolved. I mean, we have invested quite a bit in trying to get this service back up. This is a community that we're dedicated to. We believe in the service which we're trying to bring, and really and truly, we're just hoping that this can be resolved quickly because before it has even greater economic or operational ramifications on us as a company.
If this was not halted by the courts, when did you anticipate BVI Cable TV would have been up and running?
We were hoping to have something up this fall. We're very close. We do have some wholesale services that we're doing now, but in terms of having a retail services that go to the individual consumers, we're very close. We have, most of the ring up for Tortola, at least for Road Town, for East End. We're working on West End, and we've been building out the spurs that go to the individual homes. And we're very close to that. And that's why it's so frustrating for us. While we felt that the need to come out and say something wasn't necessarily to accuse anyone of anything. It's really that, we've put a lot of hard work into this and we put a lot of money into this. And to just be stopped is very, very frustrating.
I can only imagine, sorry. Mr. Penn, thank you so much for stopping by. I think collectively the territory is hoping that we can come to a common resolve with this situation, but thank you so much for stopping by at 284 Media.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I'm Jovan Wilson with your 284 exclusive.